Whether it's a scene, a strong monologue, a pitch, a sales presentation, whether it's a big text or a small text, this is the fundament that you will need anyway, anyhow, anytime. Let's get right to it. You need to understand. It's like the church. You need that understanding. You need that foundation. So what do you need to understand? You need to understand what you're saying. And you see, the word understanding comes from masonry, comes from that medieval period where we were building those magnificent cathedrals and amazing churches. First of all, you need to excavate a ditch in the ground, step down and look up. So you have that understanding because you are underneath the stand. You're underneath where everything actually happens. First of all, you create that subconscious subliminal structure that lies inside of you. And whether you have a lot of time, because sometimes, let's be honest, when it comes down to acting, sometimes the text comes in like the night before or 2 days before. In a regular memorization process, you probably need up to 7 days to kind of have the text, to kind of learn the text completely and absorb it and make it our own. So what do we do when we don't have that amount of time, when we need to go fast? We need to excavate faster. The more our understanding goes about what we're saying, the faster we can learn and adapt and internalize the words. So we need to excavate that ditch on which we can place our foundation on top. We need to understand what the words are really about. What are we saying? And here comes the thing. Your memorization process doesn't start with your next audition. Your memorization process starts during your private time, during your free time. You need to study words. You need to understand what words actually mean. Like before you go and memorize lines, why don't you dissect language before it actually happens? Why don't you study what words actually mean, where they come from, who has used them before you, and what they meant to those people, to those authors, before you kind of read them for the first time and tried to memorize them? Because the more words, the more meanings, the more understanding you have of language, of what you are saying, the easier you can learn afterwards. Does that make sense? That understanding I'm talking about the architecture of language that is memorization, goes through learning what words actually mean. And you can do this in many, many different ways. There are millions of techniques, great resources, great YouTube channels, great pages, websites everywhere. You can look them up and find them pretty easily, where people teach you, where people will tell you what words mean and how you can study them and what words are actually doing with your system, where they come from, what the original meaning was, so on and so forth. There are millions of examples. But one great way I personally love is to put the word in the middle and to create a spider web around it with pretty much every word I use. Like if you have complicated words or easy words, it doesn't really matter. Put your initial word in the middle of a blank sheet of paper and create a web around it. That's why it's called World Wide Web in a way, right? This is internet. It's made out of words, out of language, out of meaning, information. So the more information you have around that word, the easier it is then to recollect what the meaning, the original was, and then memorize it afterwards. So if you have a word, what is the antithesis of that word? What is the thesaurus? What is the antagonist word? What is the associate meaning? What does it also mean? Are there any other relations to that word? Where is the origin? Where does it come from? Who invented this word? Who used it for the first time? Where is its most famous predecessors? And so on and so forth. And you will see, wow, this is a great amount of knowledge I can put into my system before I actually learn and memorize my first line in any script. I know. That seems like a lot of work, but guess what? The more work you do before, it's like a pianist, right? You have to kind of exercise your notes, your tones, your harmonies way before you learn a certain piece. Before you do learn a certain piece, before you memorize the lines, make sure to have total control of your words. And it's way easier to memorize them afterwards because you have a full understanding of their true purpose, of their true meaning. So what are you saying in the script? Do you know your words? Do you know your lines? Do you have a complete idea of how to, get a grip of those words and how to control them, manipulate them, how they sound? Yeah, if you do so, then it will be way easier for you to memorize them, to kind of put them into your system, even if you have a very little amount of time at your requirement. And that's where the whole thing starts, because acting is like a science. It's like a science of your body. It's the science of your voice. It's the science of meaning, of emotions. And the more quality you put into that science, the more research you do for that science you make on your own, the easier then the results will be, and the outcome will be, and the process will be. So what am I saying here? The brighter and the clearer my vision is, the better I can learn, internalize them, the more authentic and genuine I come across as a character when I'm displaying it, when I'm using them, when I'm deploying my performance inside of the casting director's office. Pretty easy stuff, right? Pretty basic. You can implement it right away. Just grab a computer, Google it, go to the Oxford dictionary, go to several dictionaries, etymological dictionaries, study great authors and writers and poets and what kind of words they used, and of course study the more complicated words first. Get a grip on very complicated, very strange sounding words, because also when you need to improvise later on, the more words you have in your arsenal, in your mental arsenal, the faster you can shoot them, the quicker you have a response, the more synthetic, easier, and the more natural you come across later on, and the more believable you are as a character. If you have to search for the word and kind of try to fill in the gaps with your mannerisms, like that's not believable. You're kind of shifting, you're kind of phasing out. Studying the words, meaning being ready to perform. Studying their meaning means you're right there, having complete control of your language, and you can use the right words for the right mood, and you have complete control of how you pronounce them, how you spell them, how they come out of your mouth, out of your throat, how you kind of fill up the room with that word. If you don't have control of the word, if you don't know the meaning of the word, if it doesn't really resonate with you, if you don't have any deeper reflection on that word, even if you memorize and you have it perfectly, it sounds flat. It sounds like a sheet of paper. It's just artificial. It's not yours. So especially when you have just a little amount of time to memorize your next big upcoming audition, it's great to study beforehand what words actually mean. And of course, get a grip on those words where you think like, this is a word I never was able to spell correctly, or it kind of sounds like gibberish when I spell it. I don't really know what it means. It's like slipping out, but I can't really control it or manipulate it or give it any lasting impression.